Hey everybody, remember me? Man, it's been quite a while since I've been here. A lot has changed since then. If you might notice, got a lot more space here already. Jeez, it was been since September, I believe, was the last time I recorded anything. So, a few changes that I've done, just off the top of my head, is I have moved my modeling space here. I am now in the closet. Yeah, I know, insert your jokes now. But I previously was over here on my computer desk, and I just had a little space in me that I was able to work on in front of the shelf that my monitor sits on, and usually my keyboard sat where I modeled, and I only had this much space. So now I have a lot more space. I'm in the closet. I got a 2-foot by 4-foot folding table that I have sitting in here in the closet. I've added another light right up there, and I can show you later. My son and I built a paint storage shelf right here. We just did that a couple days ago on a Sunday. Apologize for my throat, but 2 weeks ago I got a chest cold that I'm just now starting to get clear of, so I'm hacking up all that good stuff. I wanted to record a video a lot sooner, but I couldn't really speak very well, so now here we are. The reason why I have been gone for so long is I've been working on a secret project, actually. The reason why it was secret is because one of my viewers of my channel, it was a Christmas gift for him. Hi, Dad. So I was watching some videos of this project being built by other modelers, and I loved it. Thought it was just an amazing looking model. Talked to my wife and some family members about doing it myself, and we decided I should do it. So we ordered all the parts, got everything together, and I started building. And I was worried about getting it done by Christmas time, and I was right. It was tough. It wasn't completed at Christmas, so I have it here back home to finish, but I was able to get it complete enough to present it to my dad when Christmas time came. So one of the reasons why I'm here in the closet, it sounds weird saying that, so I'm sure it's just great hearing it, is because I needed more space for this specific model that I built. So let me put a real quick cut in here. I'll bring the model up in here and show you guys, and then I'll talk about the building process and why I didn't film it. So I'll be right back, and I'll show you what's going on. Alright guys, we are back, and what you see here is the 1/350 scale Polar Lights Starship Enterprise Refit. This is what has been consuming my life since September of 2016. Now I have to manually hold this camera, because even with the space of the closet, it would put the model right about there, which you can't really see everything. So I'm stepping back here, showing you what I've worked on, and you can also see the paint shelf there in the back that my son and I built out of scratch. Tamiya Vallejo paints. Got some enamel paints there on that shelf. All my different miscellaneous stuff. There's my There's my studio lights up there on the top, and another light on the bottom of the shelf in the closet. So, back to the Enterprise. This has been quite a build, and one of the reasons why I did not film it is because I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting myself into. I studied the videos, I studied people's builds of it, and I still wasn't exactly sure what I was getting into. So I didn't want to have the stress of building this and filming it and being worried about messing up, because I knew I was going to mess up and have a lot of mistakes, and I didn't want to worry about the filming process too. I did take some pictures as I went, and later on in this video I'll show you a slideshow of those pictures and explain kind of what you're looking at. But I would like to point out that this is not a spotlight from right here. This is actually coming through the plastic on the inside of the model. You can see where the paint ends and the plastic begins. That's one thing I need to work on and fix. But it's called Raytheon lighting, and you can look for it on the internet, and I'll post a link in the description below on where you can see it. But he came up with this lighting from the inside to give the illusion of spotlights on the outside. So here's another one right here on one of the warp engines. We'll go down here and you can see on the neck there's another spotlight coming through, and down here there's more spotlights coming through, and the shadow of where the phaser banks would be is a piece of tape, reflective foil tape on the inside, blocking that light in kind of 2 points, making that give the impression of a shadow. So that's pretty neat. Got the phaser banks, or excuse me, the photon torpedoes are lit. And you can see there I still need to do the front dish, and then kind of catch a glimpse of all the wiring inside that thing. And what I did was I put this adapter, it's a 9-volt 2-amp power pack that's plugged in here, right there. It's wire plugged into the base, and then all the flood wiring is wired into that plug. The blinking lights, the navigation lights, here's the red. We'll go over the other side. There's the green. And then a couple flashing in the back. Those lights are wired up to a control board that are causing that to blink. But also, you notice that this flash is flashing about twice the speed as these navigation lights. Those are also connected to the same board. So you have two outputs of flashing lights blinking at 2 separate times. Back here is one of those flashing lights. And back on each of the warp engines is also one of those flashing lights. So I had to run wires. The control board is secured inside the saucer right about here. So I had to run wires from that control board all the way down through the neck, through the body, and up each pylon to the end of the warp engines to get those wired in correctly. And then those lights, let's see if I can get this wire out here, had to have a separate power supply than the main ones, so that board is controlled separately by this 9-volt battery. You can see that nav light right here, that's kind of cool. So that control board up in the saucer, its power runs down through the neck, through the body, through this post. It comes out right here. So that's one wiring. Then the floods all go to this plug-in. So I'm not much of an electrician, so a lot of the wiring was learn as I go and make mistakes, adapt, and what have you. So that was fun and interesting. Plus the control board, I'm not saying anything bad about them. It's a great product, but it was defective when I got it. But I called up the owner of the company, talked to him directly. He called me at my convenience when I was not working, worked with me with problems, walked me through how, using a voltmeter, testing everything, and we couldn't figure it out, so I had to mail it to him. He found that 2 of the connections to these wires were not soldered correctly by the manufacturer, so he fixed them and sent it back and refunded my money of the board itself and the shipping. So it was a great outcome, and I appreciated his help. I'll put the link below also. So we have the flashing lights. We have all these LEDs that are also putting out kind of a flood effect, just highlighting some of the model. Another thing that I did that turned out pretty well is, well, first of all, there's interiors that are, zoom in here, this is the officer's lounge. So there's interior in specific places. See my great job I did with that seam. I need to fix that too. So that's the, oh, where'd it go? There's the officer's lounge there. Inside here, it's really tough to see. I'm not going to try to get on camera really well, but there's also a room in there which is the rec deck, and that's like the recreation deck. It has places for I think it's not the hologram deck, but it has tables for meetings and what have you. So, and then we have the arboretum, which is inside of there. And you don't see it in any of the, ooh man, it's picking up all the the scratches on that clear. You don't see it in any of the motion pictures, but the Enterprise has an arboretum, which is in the engineering section, which is the main body of the ship. And they have trees, there's benches, a little river and a waterfall. The waterfall's on the other side of the ship. So that's there. And you can see where I have to do some blending on this to fix that. I have to do a lot of highlight painting yet. This section around the bridge is highlighted kind of a gray. Back here on the strong back, they have a bunch of highlight colors, gray and a duck egg blue to go back there. And I'm gonna move this around here really quick. Another finished interior is the shuttle bay. I've got a couple shuttles in there, and unfortunately there's a lot of corners I had to cut to get the Christmas Eve deadline, and this shuttle bay was one of them. One of the corners I had to cut. I did do some of the shuttles obviously, but there's a lot more detail in there that I could have added, but I wasn't able to due to time. But one thing I did do is I added a landing light control board, and I have a switch right here, and it'll turn on those landing lights. I thought that was a fun little project. Focus. So there we go. Got the blue chiller grills on the warp engines. I have the warp engines here. I need to do a lot of touch up on those. The impulse crystal right there. And another thing that there's some floodlights on the front of the warp. Oh, there's some masking tape right there that I missed. Another thing that I'm going to have to do with this model is once I get it all completed, I have to cover the entire thing with decals. And it's hard to see in the movie or the motion picture, but it has a camel pattern on it that's called the Aztec camel pattern. We have a bunch of the really faint little squares of a camouflage pattern, and I need to do that to the entire model. So once it's complete, everything's going to get covered with a decal. So that's going to be fun. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice because my dang chest cold. So I'll kind of get this wrapped up, but from this point we will be able to do a lot of work together. I probably won't film it minute by minute with you, but I'll bring back with some highlights and what I've been working on. And eventually, I think with everything I've learned with this ship, I probably want to make one for myself. So maybe if that does happen, then we can build that together on this channel. That's going to be, but I am really tickled at how well it's turned out. I'm going to turn these lights out real quick, and we can take a look at it with the lights off. So there we go, guys. The NCC 1701A Starship Enterprise, a 1350s Polar Light kit, and it is interesting and fun. The kit is not designed for lighting. All that has to be a modification. I'll kind of give you an idea with the slideshow that we will jump into right now. So stick around and hope you enjoy so far, guys. Alright, welcome back to the slideshow. This is day one when I opened the box of the Enterprise, and just getting a kind of a size comparison of the saucer to my hand, and you can see where my old workspace was and how much space I didn't have for that model. And so I definitely needed a bigger space, and I did work on the Starship in that space for a little bit of time, but I soon moved out into the into the closet to have more space to work on it, where I finished the model. These next two slides, we skip ahead quite a ways. They're my first light tests of the top half of the saucer, which includes the officers' lounge there at the back. That involves some small detail painting and gluing it into place, and all of the LEDs that make up that bridge section. The miscoloration is primer that I sprayed around the area, but prior to putting the clear piece in, that it would be the window to the officer's lounge. So I didn't want to get that painted with the primer, so I pre-painted, then put that into place. Here is the bottom of the top half of the saucer of the ship. This is where all the fun begins, and you can see all the wiring that was involved with this. Around the outside you see some white rectangles. Those are light boxes that are surrounding the lights of the windows that are on the perimeter of the ship that you see on the sides. Those are light boxes preventing those LEDs from shining into the center of the saucer to interfere with the other lights. Towards the middle is kind of a boomerang looking shape of a white. That is the light box to the floodlight that is shining through the plastic, creating that Raytheon effect that I mentioned earlier. Down at the bottom, there's a round circle with some red on it. That is actually a medicine bottle cap. That is the bottom of the blue LED that is creating the impulse crystal. And the rec deck is on the bottom left next to that medicine bottle with the shiny foil tape on it. And I don't believe the control board is in there at this moment. This is at the time when I had to send that control board back to get repairs. But that control board is glued right above that rec deck, in between where that white patch is, in between the foil on the back of the flood and above where that rec deck is. So that was the area where I secured that control board. Here is a light test of the neck, and notice the tape and the clamps indicating that it was just recently glued together. And I wanted to try out the light test with the two halves together, because I have foil tape on the inside of both halves with LEDs facing opposite directions, hopefully having those LEDs reflect off the foil tape, illuminating the entire area of that, getting good light coverage of the windows and the spotlight area. You notice all the wires hanging down, the wire mess that was to wire up just that neck of the Enterprise. At this point, we're about November, a couple months into the build. This is the first picture I've taken in the closet in my new building area. If you notice in the previous slide in the video of the saucer, I'm sitting at my computer desk still. So this is the first time building in the new work area. This is the arboretum that I showed earlier in the Enterprise. In the engineering section, you can see the trees, the blue waterfall on the left, it's a pathway, and there's a bridge, a little bridge. There's some park benches here and there. You can for people to sit in, I guess, to give a Earth-like atmosphere while you're in space, in case you get lonely of Earth amenities. So here's the some better pictures of the arboretum than what we filmed in the ship earlier. Here's a test of the flash, the landing light flash on the shuttle bay floor. And here's a picture of the wiring to that. Each wire running up the middle of those goes to a pair of those LEDs that cause the flash. So each pair flashes in sequence. The green and white wire at the bottom is the power to the board itself, and then the blue and orange coming out the top, those four control the LEDs themselves. Here's the shuttle bay with the roof removed, but the walls and the floor inside, and I had just recently glued those two shuttles in. The back shuttle is sitting on a kind of a equipment lift or a shuttle lift, and the one in the front is sitting on the landing bay itself. So there's like a little elevator that takes it down to that bottom level. As I mentioned, this shuttle bay craves detail, but unfortunately you can't see a lot of it, but there's a lot of detail that you can still add to it, depending on how you feel. So in the future, if I ever do build another Enterprise for myself with you guys, then I will definitely add a lot more detail in this bay. At this point of the build, I started realizing that I should take more pictures so I can create a slideshow like this in the future. So this is the bottom half and the side of the engineering body of the ship. The foil tape is it's like a duct tape, but more solid foil. It has some good reflective properties, and it's also a good light block source. You can see the LED tape on the side. It's double density bright LED tape, and on the bottom where the brown and white wires go, that is a LED for the strobe on the bottom of the ship. Also on the side you can kind of make out the two windows where the arboretum sits, kind of in the center there. So that is basically what the inside of the whole model looks like. It has that reflective tape for light blocking and reflection, and it has LEDs and a whole bunch of wiring in it. Here's a view of the engineering body of the ship with the roof off, but the sides are glued to the floor, and the shuttle bay is there in the center. You can see how much room I don't have now with that shuttle bay inserted in there. Some modelers have modified that by cutting it shorter, but I left it at the full length, and I have LEDs on both sides of those walls shining towards the reflective tape of that shuttle bay and then bouncing off that tape to illuminate the windows that are on the sides of that engineering. Here's just a front view of that same area. The arboretum is going to sit down on the front there, right underneath the front of the shuttle bay. So while we're gaining wires and losing space, you can see the LED tape on the right and left running the whole length of the sides there. Here's the construction of the warp engines. Here's half of one of those engines. I tried to, instead of using foil tape, I actually painted the entire inside of flat black and then a gloss white. It worked. I didn't have to fight the foil as bad. There's the LED tape on the top. It would shine across to foil on the opposite side and reflect back into that chiller grill. And here's warp engine completed with the pylon. It's all glued in place. The wires coming out the bottom there. One wire was for the flashing LED on the top, and then two wires were for the floodlights. Here's the two completed warp engines. This is my living room. I had just gone upstairs and showed my wife the completed warp engines, and she was sitting to my right with the Christmas tree to the right of her. Here we are at crunch time. think had maybe a week or two left until Christmas, and I was not even quite ready yet. You see, the engineering was taking place. I have the arboretum down there in place. The roof was about to get, it wasn't glued on yet, but it was test fit. Make sure the walls were going to fit and everything. Here's one of those pylons going on. It With the pylon on the side, it was very flexible until you put the roof on. So I glued them and used clamps to hold them in place to help secure them until I was able to put that roof on. But it's starting to take shape, and I was really getting excited, really getting nervous about my deadline fast approaching. Here I have it at arm's length with my cell phone up against my chest, close enough to where I can see what I was taking a picture of. So it was getting big, and all the wires, gosh, wires. I had bad dreams about all those wires. There's the wires coming in, the arboretum down at the bottom, the shuttle bay. I had to fish and consolidate all those wires into something a little bit more manageable there. And there we go. That's engineering, and the warp engines all glued in place. The side of the engineering was already primered, and the arboretum windows were painted, so I didn't paint the clear glass that went in to cover the arboretum that we found was kind of a little scratched in that video. And here she is. This is the first completed picture. The neck was just glued on to the engineering body. That's why the alcohol bottom is underneath that saucer supporting its weight. It is not obviously setting on its stand yet, but all the pieces are glued together. I haven't done a lighting test yet, so I haven't really seen exactly what it is that I'm looking at yet. There's some primer on the warp engines, gray primer, and white primer on the body and the engineering section and the pylons. I ended up painting everything primer white after this was taken. This was, I believe, 2 days before Christmas Eve, so I was getting down to the wire. Here we are. The Enterprise is sitting upside down, resting on the saucer. Currently, I'm beginning the wiring, painting at this time. You can notice that the photon torpedoes are masked off for painting. I have consolidated a lot of the wiring there in the body, with only 3 pairs of wires running up or down out of the spaceship. I ran into a problem that I didn't foresee, and that is that the support tube that the ship sits on that connects it to the base is solid, and I needed to get 3 pairs of wires through that solid rod to get into the base for all my connections to power supply. Well, luckily, one of my really good friends is a machinist at a machine shop here in town, and he was able to put that rod into a lathe and turn it hollow for me. He did it in a couple days, so I was able to put that rod in and use it. It's a steel rod, so I didn't have to substitute a softer rod such as brass or aluminum. I was able to use that harder steel rod to support it, because with all the wiring involved with the model, it is heavier than it was originally designed for when they used that rod. So I was glad we were able to do that last minute, and I really appreciate him doing that last minute for me. So thank you for doing that if you're watching this video. And here we are. We made it. This is Christmas Eve morning. This is I just took off all the masking. I took it upstairs, plugged everything in, and this is the first time I saw it with the kids, all lit up, all the masks removed, with the paint and everything. This is the first time I saw it, and I couldn't believe how well it turned out. For I wasn't going to give myself a lot of credit, but I was very excited at how well it turned out, and I was very excited to take it to my father and present it for his Christmas present. He's obviously a big fan of Star Trek, and because he is a big fan, watching the movies with me when I was young, I am also a big fan, and I love this ship, and I especially love this refit version, which is debuted at the end of movie 4. And it's a really exciting, emotional part of the movie series when they reveal this ship, and I wanted to portray that feeling when I presented it to my dad too at Christmas. So I think it turned out great, and he loved it. Everybody loved it, and it was just a great experience. Christmas Eve night. This is just minutes after I revealed this model to my dad. In this slide you can actually see his knee in the bottom of the picture. On the bottom right is the box I had covering it. Now how I presented it to my dad is I actually queued up the movie of when in the 4th movie when they reveal this Enterprise to Kirk and the crew when they're in the shuttle. They go over the Excelsior, and there's the 1701A. I showed that part of the movie to him after explaining how it always gives me the chills and all these emotions when I see that. So we played that part of the movie. As soon as it came up over, and Kirk says something to the effect that we're home, or something to that effect. We paused the movie. I lift up the box off of this, and there it was. It was amazing. It's such a great feeling. The whole family was there. My wife, my mother-in-law, the kids, mom and dad, and everybody just loved it. It turned out great. So it was well worth the pain and blood, sweat, and tears that I put into that model. And I definitely enjoyed it. I would love to do it again. And I think that if I do build it again, it'll just be even better from applying what I learned building this one. So, but as I mentioned earlier in the video, it's not done. There's some work I still need to do that I would love to do with you guys. So I really appreciate you watching. Thank you for coming back to the channel for me being away for such a long time. I promise to get more videos going now that this secret project is out in the open. Stay tuned for updated videos on my progress of finishing this Enterprise. I have a couple other projects that I'm going to be starting soon that I'm going to video and get out on YouTube. But my voice is about to go. It is bedtime, and it's time to call this a video. So thank you everybody for watching. I appreciate everyone for watching and sticking around. So until then, I will see you in the next video.